My mother left me 60 acres she did not own. That mistake is the only reason I was ever paid. The clause is 11 words long on page 2 of a will she signed in 2006. To my son Martin, the 60 acres and the camp on Kettle Road. My name is Martin. My mother died in the spring of 2019, and that land had belonged to my older brother for 21 years. His lawyer sent me one paragraph about it, 6 weeks after the funeral. A testator cannot devise property she does not own. The clause naming you is void, and it is void from the day it was written. He was right. I took it to 2 other lawyers and a legal aid clinic, and all of them told me the same thing in kinder words. You cannot give away what is not yours. So I did nothing for 4 years, and in those 4 years my brother took everything our mother owned, and he was entitled to all of it. But hold on to one small thing, because it is the whole story. In the fall of 2023, my brother stood at a county counter and paid $340 to prove he owned a house he had lived in for 4 years. Ask yourself why a man does that. You probably think a clause like mine is a typo. A tired lawyer, an old woman confused about which son had which piece of ground. That is what I thought, and it is what my brother needed me to keep thinking. It was not a mistake. My mother knew exactly who owned Kettle Road, and she wrote that clause anyway, because she had watched what happened in 1998. My father died in the winter of 1998, the way he did everything, quietly and about 6 months before anyone was ready. He left a will nobody argued with. The house on Fairview went to my mother. The 60 acres on Kettle Road went to my brother, outright, by name, with a deed recorded at the courthouse 9 days after the funeral. Nobody has ever disputed that. I was 26 and I was not in the will at all. My father's view was that the oldest son gets the ground and the youngest gets an education, and I had the education. So there is no version of this where the land was mine. I want that clear before the rest, because the moment you think I was cheated out of a deed, you will get the ending wrong. What I was cheated out of is something else, and it has a very unglamorous name. It is a rule about arithmetic, and it does not care about land at all. My mother lived another 21 years in the house on Fairview. She watched my brother put a gate across the Kettle Road track in 2004 and stop me at it in 2011, and she never said a word to him about it. She said it to a lawyer instead, in 2006, in 11 words, and she paid $200 to have it typed and witnessed. Then she never mentioned it again. By that summer, my brother was the executor, and there was not much to execute. A house, a savings account, a car that did not run, and a clause 4 lawyers had already called dead. He sold the timber off Kettle Road that October. Selective cut, 40 loads, $19,400, and he told me about it at a Thanksgiving table because he thought it was good news. In 2020, he moved into the house on Fairview. In 2021, he took the savings, which came to $61,000, and closed the account our mother had opened in 1974. I did not fight any of it. There was nothing to fight. Every professional I could afford had told me the clause with my name in it was worth nothing. And then in 2023, he decided to sell the house, and a stranger in a title office read the will the way a will is actually read. Here is the rule, in plain English, and you have waited long enough for it. A will is one document. If you take something under it, you have to let the whole thing work. You cannot keep the part that pays you and cancel the part that costs you. That has a name, and the name is election, and it is about 300 years old. It does not move a single acre. It never touched my brother's deed, and it was never going to. My mother could not give me Kettle Road. That was true on the day she signed, and it is true now. But she could do something else, and she did. She could put a price on the house. She wrote a will that hands my brother a house and a savings account, and in the same 2 pages hands me his land. The law reads those together because they arrive together. So my brother had a choice, and the fact that nobody told him he had one does not mean he did not make it. He could keep his land, or he could keep what the will gave him. He could not keep both. And if he kept the land, which he was fully entitled to do, then what our mother left him has to make me whole out of what he took. I want to slow down on one word, because it is the only place this can be won or lost, and it is not a legal word. The word is take, not the word inherit, not the word deserve. The whole thing turns on the word take. The rule only bites a person who actually accepted something under the will. If my brother had walked away from the house and the money, he keeps Kettle Road free and clear, and I have no claim of any kind. That is a real option, and people take it. And this is where it fell apart for me for 8 months. Because my brother's answer was simple, and his lawyer of 3800 wrote it in one sentence. My client did not accept anything. He is the only child who stayed. He argued he had moved into his own mother's house the way a son moves into his mother's house. No ceremony, no paperwork, no receipt. He just never left the county. And a court cannot make a man elect against himself on a feeling. It needs an act. Something he did on a date that only makes sense if the will was giving him something. For most of a year, I could not find one. He never signed a receipt from the estate. He never cashed a check with the word estate on it. He was careful. What broke it open was not my lawyer, and it was not me. It was the buyer, a couple from 2 counties over who wanted the house on Fairview and wanted a mortgage to pay for it. A bank will not lend on a house unless a title company insures it, and a title company will not insure a house that came out of a dead woman's estate on nothing but a handshake and a mailing address. They need a document at the county that says how the house got from my mother's name into my brother's name, not a story about it. A recorded instrument, with a number, in a book anybody can pull. So in October of 2023, my brother did the ordinary, sensible, completely proper thing that anybody in his position would do. He had a deed drawn from the estate to himself, and he took it to the register. An executor's deed has to say where the executor got the power to sign it. That is the whole point of the document. So on line 4 of his, in language his own lawyer chose, it says he takes the property under Article 3 of the last will of our mother. He signed the deed himself. He swore to it in front of a notary at 11 in the morning, and he paid $340 in recording fees and transfer tax to make it permanent and public. That is the act. That is the thing done on a date that only makes sense if the will was giving him something, written by the only person in the county with a reason to deny it. My lawyer pulled it for $12 on a Tuesday. It had been sitting in the public record for 14 months, and it was indexed under my brother's name because he paid to have it indexed under his name. Once that page is in front of a judge, the argument changes shape completely. Nobody has to prove my brother was greedy, or that he lied, or that my mother was of sound mind. All of that falls away. The only question left is arithmetic. He kept his 60 acres, which he was always entitled to keep. What was the thing the will tried to give me actually worth on the day she died? A forestry appraiser and a rural land broker put the Kettle Road parcel at $186,000, and my brother's own expert came in at $171,000, which was close enough that the fight ended there. He had taken $214,000 for the house and $61,000 from the savings. So there was enough in his hands to make good on what our mother tried to give me, and the court made him do it. He kept the land, he kept the difference, and he has not spoken to me since the day the order was entered. I want to tell you what he said before that. We were in a hallway outside a courtroom in the spring of 2024, and he was not angry. That is the part I was not ready for. He looked like a man who had been handed a bill he did not understand. He said, "I have owned that ground since I was 34 years old. I cut the trail in myself. I put the roof on the camp with our father in the last October he was any good, and she gave it to you in a sentence." And I said, "She did not give it to me. She never could have. She just made sure that if you wanted the house too, it would cost you something." He asked me what she wanted, and I told him the truth, which is that I do not know because she never said one word about it to either of us for 13 years. What I do know is that she sat in a lawyer's office in 2006, 8 years after a gate went up across the road, and she spent 211 words that she knew were legally impossible, and she left them in the drawer. She did not warn him, and she did not warn me. She wrote a clause that could not work the way it reads, and then she went back to making him dinner on Sundays for another 13 years. She let a man who had stopped his own brother at a gate go on believing he had gotten away with it, and she never once corrected him. For a long time, I thought that made her a coward. I have come around on it, and the reason I came around is the deed my brother recorded, because of what he had to do to sell that house. So here is why a man pays $340 at a county counter to prove he owns a house he has been sleeping in for 4 years. He was not being careless, and he was not being arrogant. He was being thorough. He could not sell it any other way. The buyer's lender needed a clean chain of title, and the only way to make one is to walk into the Register of Deeds and put on the public record in your own name exactly where your ownership came from. There was no version of that sentence that helped him. If he says the house came to him under the will, he has accepted under the will. If he says it did not, he has no chain and no sale and no buyer. My mother could not take his land, and she never tried to. What she did was quieter than that. She made sure that the day he wanted to turn the house into money, he would have to say out loud where the house came from. A stranger in an underwriting office would ask him for it. A notary would watch him sign it, and a clerk would stamp it and file it and charge him $340 for the privilege. My brother never lost an acre of Kettle Road, and he never will. He lost the house because he is the one who put it in writing that our mother gave it to him.